Well, welcome back to Comfort, Breeze, Complacency. This is episode 5. Today we have professional big mountain free skier Johnny Collinson. So thanks for joining me, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I've been a big fan watching your ski films and everything for years and years. My buddies used to always go. I'm from Calgary here, so when they're playing at like Freshville and stuff, we go and get super hyped and watch them and go and just try some crazy shit skiing. And it was always awesome having inspiration like that. But thanks for taking the time to come talk with me, and yeah, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm psyched.
I just kind of wanted to start with maybe if you can give people just like a quick run through of like from where you grew up to kind of where you are now.
Yeah, totally. So, yep, I'm Johnny Collinson. I live here in Salt Lake City, Utah, where I spent my whole life. I grew up at Snowbird Ski Resort, where my dad worked for the ski patrol. So it was just kind of natural that my sister Angel and I started skiing from a young age. And just so we always skied, and I really got interested in skiing for a living, or like, I kind of figured I'd be more of a ski bum, honestly. But around the time I was graduating high school, so 17, 18, and at that time, I'd just finished climbing the 7 summits. So it was the highest peak on each continent, which was a pretty awesome year of my life. And it really is what set me up to kind of go down the outdoor industry path, really, because after that, I knew I wanted to ski and not walk down mountains. And so then I started competing, and I started gathering sponsors that, slowly snowballed, like paying entry fees into contests and then into films. And then that led me down till today, where it's like 15 years later and I'm still going somehow.
Yeah. That was one thing I wanted to touch on was your 7 summits, because at the time you were the youngest person to do it, right? Like 17 you finished?
Yeah, totally. So at the time I was the youngest.
Nice, man. I was kind of wondering because I know those are like Everest for one, like all these huge peaks, and each one on their own is like a separate expedition that takes like money, logistics, everything like that. How did that kind of like come about, especially at such a young age? Like, I know with some of the things I'm doing now, even like not as big as that, but they take so much like logistics and planning and time and money. And like, how did you get maybe the backing from that, or like, how did you fund that at such a young age and all that?
Yeah. So it was all my parents. I mean, like the vision and the like excitement came from me and my dad, but all the funding was my parents, which they, like took a line of credit out on a property they owned, like the only house they owned. It was a rental, and we lived up in the employee housing up at Snowbird. So my parents like basically mortgaged their house to send me around the world on this expedition, just kind of like on the basis of that, like, experience is the best education kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it was just like big hats off to my parents. Like, I'll be indebted to them my whole life, and continually they just always are super kind and helping me out. But that was pretty unreal. I don't know many parents that would do that for their kids.
Yeah, for sure. That's pretty wild. Did you have a favorite peak out of those ones?
I don't know. They're all so different, and that's what I think makes them super unique, where, it's the 7 summits is definitely not a like technically challenging mountaineering feat comparatively to like if you wanted to put up new lines in the Himalaya or some of the things that like professional alpinists and mountaineers chase. It's a much like tamer goal. But the cool thing is like, yeah, your Antarctica is pretty wild because there's no smells. There's sunlight 24/7. So it's like its own experience. And then Karsten's Pyramid, you're like in the jungles of New Guinea and, fighting through spider webs and banging through the muck for 2 weeks. So it's just like, they're all crazy different, which is pretty special.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. Seeing like the variety of everything, and each one must have been fun to kind of plan and That must be a sweet process.
Yeah, totally. And I would say, I mean, Everest was really cool. And because the main goal all stemmed from Everest, because I'd always wanted to climb Everest. And then I linked up with this guy who worked for the ski patrol, Willie Benegas, who was also like a North Face alpinist. So he was guiding trips on Everest every year. And I just started climbing and running with him around Salt Lake here. And that's how the idea kind of came up. Was we were just kind of shooting the shit, and he was like, wow, you're pretty good in the mountains. And I was like, yeah, could I do Everest? And then he was like, yeah, you could. So that's where the idea sort of came from.
Right on, man. Yeah, that's super cool. Yeah, I haven't done too much like mountaineering or stuff like that. I did like a cycling trip this past February, and in the middle of it did Pico de Orizaba in Mexico.
Oh,
so
cool.
That's kind of the biggest one I've did, but it was super, just got my feet wet, and like definitely want to do more of that in the future. It's just like so rewarding, and yeah, it's definitely a cool thing to do for sure.
Yeah, it's nice.
With talking about like Angel and stuff, you're both like professional athletes. Did you guys, like, growing up, was it a lot of like pushing each other to try new things and to like compete with each other, and like did your work ethic kind of stem from each other, from your dad, you said, or where did you guys get kind of that drive for professional athletes, and both of you at such a high level and like with some of the same sponsors and everything?
Right. It's funny because I would remember it like as kids being pretty casual. Like we were never competitive with each other, or it was never kind of like headbutting of who could be number one. It was almost stemmed more from like, I watched my sister succeed in ski racing, and it was like, wow, that seems so cool. She's like chasing this goal and doing well. And then I saw everyone, was super supportive of her because she did well. So I was like, well, I want to be like that. And then I think on the flip side, in the summers, we'd spend all of our time as a family, like living out of a van, climbing and hiking. And I had this, ever since I was little, it was like I could go pretty fast and hard, like hiking and climbing. And I think my sister saw that and was like, wow, John's like so good at walking uphill. Like, I wish I could be like that. So I think unknowingly we sort of raised the bar for each other here and there. And then it's just such an incredible community here in Salt Lake and in Little Cottonwood. We're just surrounded by like amazing mountain athletes that they're not like professional athletes, but they're just good at what they do and good at skiing, at climbing, etc. And so spending time with those kind of mountain people, it just elevated the game a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, I know, like one of my like friends' girlfriends, she grew up in Whistler, and I think she went to school with like Sean Pettit and stuff, and
Yeah.
she was saying literally like half of the high school is sponsored in like cycling or climbing or biking or
Right.
skiing or like something. So that's pretty cool to see. Like, I guess iron sharpens iron. You are who you surround yourself with and stuff. That's pretty sweet to see, like the community. And
it was pretty fun. So my sister she retired from skiing this past year, but before that we shared like all the same sponsors and got to film with TGR. And so it was a pretty unique like bunch of years for a ski career, getting to travel with my sister, where it was like design meetings with North Face or film premieres with TGR or like actual filming in Alaska. We got to do so much cool stuff as siblings, like professionally. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that must be super cool to have those experiences to share forever. Kind of with your sponsors, I know you're sponsored by like the biggest ones in the game, RedBull and guys like that. Where did that because I know that's kind of with me, I have some smaller sponsors now, but trying to like take that next step with the things that I do. How did you kind of get in the eyes of these like bigger sponsors? Was it more you reaching out to them, or did they come to you? And like, what age did that kind of come about?
Good question. So I would say it's been a mix of like people reaching out to me and me reaching out to them. And I also have been pretty lucky. Like Smith, they started just flowing me stuff when I was 15. and then I'm still with them today. So that's been like a 15-year relationship that's just grown every year. And same with North Face. Right after the 7 summits, I kind of got my foot in the door because the guy I was climbing with was an athlete for them. So I got like the contact of the athlete manager, and it was just sort of a slow kind of natural growth where I started doing well competing and they started giving me more stuff. And then as I grew as a skier, they just grew their support. And so that's been it's like 13 years with North Face or so. And then RedBull was one where it was like, I was pretty hungry to get on board with RedBull. So I was pestering them pretty hard for years. And then after a while, like I backed off. I was like, all right, I might not be like RedBull caliber, And then my sister, actually, they like reached out to my sister, and that same year we both competed at the RedBull Cold Rush, the last one they had up in Revelstoke. She won. I got second for the men. And so it worked out pretty well that we both got signed after that. I think it was like the final nail in the coffin, kind of like podiuming at Cold Rush, and then it was good to go.
Yeah, I remember watching those Cold Rush competitions and just like the split between the like cliff day or the technical days and stuff. It was just crazy to see some of the size of the things you guys are sending, and that's super cool. So I guess as an athlete, like the skier you are, it's a kind of a mix, or was more like competing and filming with like Teen Gravity. Which did you kind of prefer more out of those? Like, did the filming come after you started gaining traction with the competing and stuff, or how'd you get on with them? And
so that was kind of a funny transition. I was competing, and I was much more focused on skiing like Ian McIntosh, kind of, or like Hugo Harrison or something. It was like straight and fast, and then the competition circuit introduced this like air and style element, and so that's when they started like rewarding tricks and stuff. So I was like, oh, okay, I need to start doing tricks, and totally shifted my style to try and do more tricks. And it honestly like didn't work out that well for me in competition. It was like I'd do these cool runs, but I could never land any of them. So my sponsors, I was with Black Diamond for skis at the time, and then North Face, and they were like, hey, we're supporting this film Sherpa Cinema's making. Do you want to start shooting with them? Because I think they just they're like, all right, he has like the potential, but it's just not coming together in competition. And they actually helped me move over to film, which I was super psyched on, and kind of never looked back. It was the filming. It just really gives you the opportunity to like be a bit more creative, and you can be pickier with the snow conditions on what you want to ski, instead of like these stringent rules. But at the same time, it was like the years of competition were pretty rewarding, because it is like forced progression almost. It's like you're there to win, or there to do as best as you can. And so you see what the other guys throw down, and you're like, all right, I guess I got to like one up that. And so it forces you to progress, which is cool.
Yeah, for sure. Was a lot of your, like, when you did find out, oh, I got to start like doing more tricks and stuff, was that a lot of park work, or were you doing that off like booters in the backcountry? Like, how are you kind of trying to progress those tricks and try new things?
It's funny because like at the time it was pretty simple tricks, really. And so I was watching like Pettit segments, and like I just want to do like big floaty threes and backflips and stuff like that. So it was pretty simple, but I did start spending some time on like trampolines and at the water park we have here in Utah. But then it just kind of cut short, and then I just started tricking stuff like at the ski resort and building some jumps, but I never really put in the legwork I wanted to on the whole trick side. It was like I got a few okay tricks, and I kind of used those through my career. And I never took the next step, like really learning and dialing in like a deep bag of tricks, which still kind of haunts me to this day, to be honest. It's like, feels like there's more on the table in the Aaron style category.
Yeah, well, I know like personally, I would always get stoked on seeing like the backcountry guys going down like the huge lines and throwing these like massive backies, like the Seth Morrison ones or just stuff like that. Just like the supernatural stuff, because you see guys like if Bobby Brown kind of came from park background and he'd do like a backcountry booter session, he's throwing these like wild tricks, but it's more just like in that specific like you're setting it up for that session, whereas like I always really respect it, and to me it was just the coolest stuff to see you guys hitting like non-touch like first tracks, these like sweet just floaty tricks off these like huge lines and stuff. That was always my favorite to see, so
Right.
that was kind of the style I tried to ride.
Oh, sick.
That was
Yeah.
It's cool to see.
I mean, that is my favorite for sure. Just like natural features, I think is pretty cool. And like, that's another thing that's unique about filming is like, you can kind of look for features that match your style and the trick you want to do. And so, yeah, that's where it was like the progression almost stopped because we were just hitting stuff natural all the time. And I rarely would take the time to like build a jump and do a whole setup like you're saying too.
Yeah, that makes sense. Who's kind of like being around all these guys and like at Cold Rush or filming, who's kind of like one of the cooler, more fun person to ride with?
I'd say we have like a pretty awesome crew with TGR. So the Canadians are always top tier, honestly. So it's like Ian McIntosh. I've gotten pretty close with him and spent a lot of time with Nick McNutt over the years. Sam Smoothie's a super cool cat from New Zealand. But honestly, it's like most people are pretty fun to hang out with. And like everyone's kind of into the same stuff and like at least ski wise and so everyone can get along for the most part with at least with the TGR crew, and that's who I've spent the most time with.
Yeah, for sure. It's just the culture around it. You can pretty much go anywhere and same mindset, same drive and stuff. That's cool.
Right, totally.
Was there a big like change or like what did people think when it got introduced into the Olympics, like park skiing and stuff? What did like skiers think of that?
I would say like,
or you personally,
it seemed kind of natural to me, with how contest skiing is with half pipe and slope style. It just sort of made sense to me that it would hit the Olympics, and I thought it was pretty exciting just getting freestyle skiing onto the world stage. I assumed it would only do good things for the sport. And like North Face, actually, they made a huge push the first Olympic years, which I thought was cool again, too, because traditionally North Face had been like backcountry skiers, climbers, runners. So kind of like pretty grungy, granola-y type crowd. And then, one year we had like Tom Wallish, Nick Martini, Aaron Blunk, Devin Logan, just like this kind of stacked field of Olympian athletes. And so I was personally like a bit starstruck. It was like, oh my gosh, like we're hanging out with all these Olympians and like pro park skiers and stuff. So that was pretty cool. It kind of began the like, call it like cross pollination, I guess, of like the park scene and the backcountry scene for me, which now it feels like there's a lot of it now. Like a lot of park guys like skiing in the backcountry and dudes ski together all the time. But so I thought it was cool. Yeah. Long story short.
Yeah. I know, like speaking of competing and, you have had a couple injuries, right? With your knees. One came from competition.
Yes. Yeah.
How's been the, like, I've dealt with, not same level of like ACLs and stuff, but I've had like bad concussion history, and I actually just broke my foot this past summer cycling. Somebody ran me off the road, but like I know coming back from these injuries sucks, and like especially when that's what you base your identity around, and like it's taken away from you. How's like coming back from that like helped you grow or learn? Or I know you're like big into fitness, and like did you like changing what you've had to do to stay fit and stay active, and what'd you kind of learn from that?
Yeah. Yeah. So I've definitely had a run, just like a quick rundown. It was like I blew my first ACL in 2018 and then had like a really strong recovery, was out skiing again, and then re-tore it in 2019. And then fast forward, had a pretty good recovery, but then it was like COVID happened. And then the next year, blew up my other knee, and that was like patellar tendon, ACL, PCL, MCL, meniscus, kind of just like full doozy. And so, yeah, I've learned a ton, like both physically, mentally, emotionally, the whole gambit has gotten run through. And it's hard to, it's like, of course, I wish I never would have got hurt, but at the same time, I have learned it's changed me so much fundamentally as a person, and I've learned so much that it's like I honestly wouldn't give it back at this point, because like you're saying, I was pretty into fitness before, but not like I am now, and not as holistically as I am now. So I appreciate that. It was like it really gave me the opportunity to just like really dive into fitness and nutrition and all these things that I care about a lot as an athlete. And so it just seemed fitting to kind of give 100% into the rehab. And then it felt like it would treat me better as an athlete on the tail end anyway. And other than that, it was the hardest thing to deal with was the identity crisis for sure. And that was mostly due to this most recent injury, because it was like almost full 2-year recovery. And it's just like a long time to spend outside of the industry. I wasn't hanging out with any of the crew in the industry. So it felt like I was kind of like gone and forgotten about. And then, so I had to just really buckle down and be like, why am I skiing? Like, why do I want to ski again? What's my place in the industry, in the world, etc. And I really had to take like a deep look at it, and it had to, like, my return to skiing had to really be because like I want to ski again, not because I think I should be or I think people want me to be. It had to be like because I really want it.
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense that it's just such like a long road, and especially when like you've been through it already, what's to come, and that must be super tough. How did how is coming back and like getting your confidence back, and like how do you build that back, especially in like a high contact sport like skiing where you're counting on your knees all the time, right? Like how do you get that confidence back? Does that come from all the work being put in the gym and rehabbing?
Yep. So for me especially, it's like putting all my effort into the gym that I can is pretty key, because then it's like, you start at the very beginning, and then it running through every exercise and every like sort of stress that we could place on the body in the gym setting. So it's like a pretty safe environment, but you're trying to like elevate it as much as you can. And so that the physical strain of that is like, it's building up the good muscles, helping all the stabilizers in your knee. And then it's also mental for me, where it's like, I've put in all that work, and I know I have, and I know that my knee feels good, jumping, doing box jumps or like split squats, whatever the exercise might be, or like direction changes running. It all just kind of clicks in mentally to like build that confidence. And then a huge one too is like being able to go mountain biking and do some other kind of fast-paced sports before skiing helps build the confidence. And then beyond that, it's really the return to snow is like a big question mark always. It feels like it's like, all right, my knee feels really good in the gym, on a mountain bike, running, etc. But I never know until I actually go skiing how it's going to feel. And I just have to go into that first day like pretty confident and I try not to worry. I try not to stress about like, what if this or what if that? It's like my only focus can be like, all right, this is going to be awesome. I know how to ski really well, and I'm just going to apply those skills like to the mountain. And then I go ski, and every time I've done it, it's like been no issues. And then the confidence, just like you're already starting at a good spot, and it's just builds and builds. And then it's just taking it easy. So like for me right now, it's the fine balance of like wanting to send it because I'm so hungry. And then I'm like, all right, got to rein it in, chill out, because I don't want to be couched again. So it's like the fine balance.
So you're just getting back on them now. I think I've seen some clips on your Instagram and stuff, but you're back on skis now?
Yep.
Sweet.
Yeah, I'm psyched.
Do you have like, I know you're saying not trying to send it, but do you have plans for this year for filming or stuff like that?
Yep. So my main focus is going to be like filming my own YouTube series. And because there's like a ton of stuff I want to do, it doesn't really make sense to do a full movie or something else. It just feels like it'll be a lot easier to do a YouTube series and like a better way to get it out there. So it'll be like a little more casual and a bit more objective based. So instead of like building jumps and hitting big cliffs, looking to do a bit more like ski mountaineering type stuff and try and go ski some like big lines in the Wasatch, but get it in good conditions and ski it fast is my goal, at least. And then we'll see as the winter goes. There's a couple potential trips lined up later in the year that could happen, but I'm not sure. So
nice. So it sounds like fun going out there.
Yeah, I'm stoked.
With you were talking about mountain biking and stuff. Is there any other like activities that you've been drawn to, especially in like recovery and stuff? That was like one of the big things I really respect about you, is because I know like in the ski industry or even like I do skydiving now, and it's a lot of the same mentality where it might just be focused on the activity itself, like fitness outside of it or health or like eating well, stuff like that isn't like a main priority. So to see you like super lean and trying to stay healthy and like do these things to better yourself beyond your sport, it's always been inspiring to me. Do you like mountain biking, other stuff? What other kind of activities do you do, like living in Utah, or that you like to do?
Right. Cool. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah. So mountain biking, I've like always really liked mountain biking. And so I spend a lot of time doing that. And then through injury, I found road cycling. And I was pretty stoked on that as well. Just kind of a different beast, and can push yourself in a different way than mountain biking. And then this past year, I actually got a gravel bike and started doing a bit of gravel biking, which was super fun. So it was like kind of taking a little bit from both, it felt like. And so that was probably my number one activity this summer, was gravel biking. And whether that was like on roads or single track, whatever, it was pretty fun to do because it was like, can push yourself pretty hard. And I think it helped my bike handling too, because every time I'd get on the mountain bike, I was like, wow, this is a lot easier to ride on downhills and stuff. And then, so cycling's been huge. And then a lot of like trail running and like kind of scrambling. Like I love finding just those ridges that it's like a mix of scrambling and running. And I used to rock climb more. It's been a while, but I used to be big into rock climbing as well.
Would you ever try and kind of like link up these different passions, like do a ski or a bike trip where you have your skis and stuff, or like even competing in a different thing like trail running or gravel or riding? Or is it more just like for the passion of doing it and getting out, or do you have like the will to compete against others in those things, or just kind of mainly focusing on skiing and those on the side?
It would, I mostly do it just for like the fun and the passion of it. But I have run some trail races before, not competitive at all. It was just to be in an event. And then same with cycling. I actually did a gravel race this summer, just to do it. It was like, yeah, I wasn't trying to be competitive at all, but I think moving ahead this next year, I'm looking to do a few gravel races, and maybe now, since I won't be focusing so much on like rehab of the knee, I'd like to like put a little more effort into actually prepping for the race, and not to try and win or anything, but just to like push myself. And I think that's the beauty of competition, is I could be there for the passion, but just the fact that there's other people there is going to push me harder than I'll maybe push myself alone. And so I think that's pretty cool in events like that, where I don't really have an identity and I can be a nobody out there having fun with everyone else. I think that's pretty fun.
Yeah, that's sick.
Yeah.
Pushing each other. And yeah, I know with the competing I've done in the past, even just training with other people or like skiing with other people, you always seem to try things a bit harder when you're on with others. So
Yeah, totally.
one thing that I found's like really helped me getting into, like, I got into ultra stuff after triathlon racing, so longer distance stuff now. But I found even going through like the injuries I've been through or stuff like that, like mental skills really helped me. Like visualization, I got into journaling and stuff, and that's really like made a difference for me. Do you do anything like that? I know like with skiing per se, like scouting out lines, kind of visualizing what it'd be like, but do you do that in other aspects of your life or any of those mental skills?
Not too much, honestly. And not, I would say, not in a like structured way. I think naturally I sort of visualize a lot and plan and like compartmentalize a lot. But I don't have very structured like visualization sessions. And as well as journaling, I've like tried to journal and I really like want to be good at it. But every time I've tried, it's like I haven't kept it up or haven't built the habit well enough. So yeah, it's more, I find like the running and the cycling and like ski touring are all activities that I find like super meditative. It just like the rhythm of like the cycling, it's like it just helps me fall into like a sort of trance, and then that's where I'm visualizing
The mundane.
yeah, totally. And it's like, and then it's like boom, I look up and before I know it, it's been 3 hours or whatever, and like wow, I don't even know what I just thought about, but I went on a journey for sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I find that with especially with like running or something, because my foot's been injured, I've been doing a lot more swimming.
Okay.
Because it's like freezing cold where I am in Calgary, it's just pool swimming. So it's a lot, like 3 hours just down like 400 laps. And it's just like no earphones. You're just like, holy shit, just what are you thinking about for that long? But like I find if you have like let's say you're trail running and your goal is to just get to the top of the mountain, and then you just kind of get lost in getting there, and then that's the goal. And it doesn't feel as much like a workout, let's say, or like something that's scheduled or planned. So I always like that. It feels like it goes way quicker and you get lost in it more. So
Totally.
I'm super hungry to get back out doing that stuff. But yeah, I do know what you mean with the best prescriptions at prolonged repetition.
Yeah.
Super.
What happened to your foot?
Well, I did this trek in February from Cabo San Lucas to Cancun, and I hit the lowest spot in the country and highest spot in the country. So it was like a solo bike trek. It was 50 days. And then when I was back home, I lived in Kelowna this past summer in BC there. And then I made it all the way through that Mexico trip fine. Nothing happened. I was just doing like a ride around the town one night, and right before, like 100 meters away from my house, some asshole just was like cutting in with their car, and it was in a construction area. So I hit this like rough road in the shoulder, and when I tried to get back up, my tires spun and I hit my foot because when I tried to clip out, my foot hit. So I hurt my wrist, my foot, and got a Liz Frank fracture in my foot. But it went undiagnosed. They can't really see it on X-rays at the start.
Um,
So I went for like a month just like working on it and everything, and nobody knew. And then I got an MRI, so I'm like, oh, this isn't right. And they saw it. So then I was booted up, and I got a boot like a month and a bit ago, but it's just getting back into stuff. But
damn.
yeah, it's just trying to find what you can do while you're laid up.
Right,
But
right, totally.
definitely try and stay active. And even for my mental, like I feel like I need to do stuff every day,
Yeah,
even if it's not like huge stuff, but you can always do something, I feel like, unless you're really messed up. But
yeah,
yeah.
that's right. I feel that it was like having the can do was huge, and like, because yeah, same thing. It'd be like on the couch, like, well, my legs not working, but could do a lot of other stuff, and that's what really helped get me through mentally was like other outlets.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. One thing I was wondering was like, let's say you're at the top of the line and it's like some you're nervous about a bit or like excited. How do you manage that like fear to excitement, kind of like making yourself perform under these pressures? Let's say somebody's like the helicopter's filming, like, okay, now it's go time. How do you like dial it in, and do you use like breathing techniques or just kind of trust your instincts? Or
It's a little bit of everything, I think. And for me, it's yeah. So it's like a fine balance for sure of like what's fear versus just nerves, and and if it's something where I'm like scared to do it, and I'm like weighing the consequences of like how bad I could get messed up, it's probably not worth it, and I'll probably write it off. But if it's more something where I'm like, damn, like if I could pull that off, that would be pretty sweet, and it feels like a high success rate, then I'll probably do it. And then and how I like to look at a line too is it's like I'll look for landings, good landings, and then look for the takeoff to match up, and then how the line works out. So I kind of work my way bottom up a little bit, and so then it's a pretty slow process. Like we spend quite a bit of time looking at lines before we ever go to the top, and especially like the gnarlier the line, you can spend as long as you want looking at it and planning it, and so for me it's like, all right, choose the line, and then there's usually like a bit of a range of like what you feel is going to be like pushing it in one regard, before you're going to go like beyond your limit. And I try not to push beyond my limit too much, or it's been a while since I've like pushed beyond my limit, I feel like. But and then from there it's kind of I would say I like compartmentalize a lot. And it's just from there, it's like, all right, get to the top. And it's like, all right, I made this decision for X, Y, and Z. Like, I know it's in my skill set. I hit airs this big, or like this trick is totally in my bag, whatever it might be. And so then it's just like really focusing on the minute details, and focusing in on those details sort of helps take the edge off a little bit, because then I'm breaking it down piece by piece, instead of like, all right, this line's 3,000 feet, I got to nail it all. It's like, all right, first nail that left footer, then you got to hit this exit air. And so just breaking it down piece by piece, like, helps make it more attainable, I guess, mentally. And then from there, it's just sort of like identifying like backup plans or X factors. Like, all right, if there's a slide in this zone, I got to be here. And that helps me out too, is just having like a real solid plan of like, if things do go wrong, I have somewhere to go. That helps me feel a lot more confident as well.
yeah, I know personally, like my Mexico thing per se, it's so many days, and it's the same kind of thing you're talking about. You can't really look at it as a whole. It's just such a undertaking, or some you have to go kind of day by day, or like you're with your line piece by piece. So that's super good skills for people, I think. Like in even just daily life, not trying to look too far ahead, just kind of taking it as it comes, and it's super important. Or otherwise, you get kind of caught up in everything. But
Yeah.
those are super good techniques for sure.
Yeah, it can just be super overwhelming, and so it's like, all right, I have this big like overarching goal, and then like got to take the first step, second step, work your way through it. Yeah.
So like personally, have you had like big, let's say, goals in the sport, or has it kind of always been for you just like taking it like day by day or year by year, just kind of like how have you because I know with like your 7 summits, like that's a big goal, and you'll be like motivated by that, but I'm sure you have to be process oriented, going from like, okay, I can't worry about the other ones now, got to worry about Everest and get that one done, then like move on. Has your career in skiing been like goals you want to check off and like got there, or has it kind of just been doing what you love and then just everything comes with that?
It's been a little bit of both. And I would say, like, my ski career specifically has been a lot of definitely more on the side of like, I'm doing what I love and seeing where it takes me, kind of. And now I'm at a point where I'm like, all right, I want to like set some goals, because I've been, I started working with all the brands I really wanted to. And so then the next goal is like filming. So then I was like filming with the production companies I wanted to. And then the next goal was like, all right, well, I want to graduate to make it up to Alaska with these companies. And I did that. And then I sort of coasted on that. And I didn't have many goals planned after that. But then I guess I've been sort of dealing with these injuries that's been taken up a lot of that bandwidth. And now I'm at a spot where I'm like really wanting to dial in some more goals, and because I've had these ideas floating around for years, and I'm like, all right, I need to make it a more actionable goal and like really break it down and figure out what it's going to take to get there and make it happen.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, so kind of like circling back to like a goal thing. Okay. Now.
Sweet. I know you said Angel's done like professional now. Do you have an idea in your future how long you'd like to do that? Or is it kind of just once you make these goals and achieve them, or just do it as long as you can? Like, or in your mind, did you have an idea of that at all, or no?
Not really. And it's like, it's funny because I want to do it as long as I can, but then at the same time, I'm like, I don't want to be that crusty old guy that's everyone's like, damn, he's still around. Like, he needs to get out of here. So, but hopefully that's in the future. So I'd like to do it as long as I can, because I think skiing's unique in that way, or especially like big mountain backcountry stuff, because there's so many little niches of it where, you can be a lot more like backcountry jump and pillow line oriented, graduate through to skiing more lines. And then there's like the ski mountaineering aspect that I'm really excited to delve into deeper now, where it's like your feet are on the ground a bit more, but you can have more objective goals. You can still ski super fast. And there's so many little niches like that you can work through as you get older and like as your body ages. And with that being said, I have a lot of goals now as well outside of skiing, like in the fitness world, and trying to figure out how to combine a lot of the fitness work I've been doing with the skiing or the outdoor world. And so those are pretty exciting goals too, from a more like, I guess, business perspective, and creating a new business for myself.
And then as well, you were saying about your YouTube and stuff, and
totally,
I'm sure like documenting all that would be part of that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Totally. Yeah. So then the YouTube, I'm pretty excited about that, because it's a little more fluid and like fast paced, hopefully. So I honestly don't really know what I'm expecting out of it, but just gonna put it out there and see what happens, I guess.
Yeah, why not, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you have fans and people that follow you already, I'm sure everybody wants to just see or get as much content from you as they can. So I'm sure it'll do really well.
Yeah, hopefully.
Well, did you have any kind of advice for maybe young athletes or people trying to get into do the same thing you're trying to do, or even maybe in a different field, but trying to use the same kind of things you talked about today?
Yeah. I would say like the number one thing, and I've heard almost every other athlete that I've worked with say the same thing, is that it has to be fun, and it has to be, if you want skiing to be your profession, it should be because you love it so much. Because once you get into the ski industry and it starts becoming work, it's like actually work, and it is a dream job, and we get to do all these awesome things with awesome people in cool places, but there is a lot of work aspects to it, and you have to be prepared to wade through the, there's a lot of emails. You have to build your own personal brand, be personable with brands. It's a lot easy. It's going to help you a lot if brands want to work with you. And then above all that, you still have to love skiing or your sport more than anything else. And it's pretty easy to get jaded on one thing or the other, or maybe something doesn't go your way and you want to be pissed off at the industry, but all of that really can't matter. And you have to just love the sport a lot, and that has to be the base. And then yeah, moving beyond that, I was kind of just touching on it. It's just for an example, I'd say living here in Little Cottonwood, we had a little crew of skiers. It was me, my buddy Samo, Leo Aarons. There's 5 or 6 of us, and I honestly thought I was the least naturally talented skier out of the group, and because we were all sort of sponsored and going into the pro skiing world, and for some reason or the other, it's not everyone made it through the gauntlet of the industry. And because it's you got to work with brands, be easy to work with, be nice, manage your social media now, come up with ways to promote yourself, still ski a lot, still love it. So there's all these moving parts, and your talent on skis might not be the only thing necessary. There's a lot more involved.
When you were growing up, did you have other jobs besides skiing to supplement that, or was it always just skiing?
It was after I did the 7 summits, that's when I started skiing more. And I worked construction for a bunch of summers, just sort of odd jobs, nothing official. It was all under the table, building decks and fences and stuff like that. And I did that for quite a few years. But I had a unique opportunity because my family and I built a house together, and we built it all with cash. So I didn't have that many bills, honestly. And that's kind of what helped me out a lot. When I started skiing, it was I was making a little bit of money from sponsors, and then in the summers I was making some from construction, and I just didn't have that many bills. And I would peg that as a big reason I was able to accomplish as much as I did, because even from the beginning, I didn't need to spend endless hours working.
Yeah, I know, personally, especially if you have a physical job, it's so hard to maintain that as well as get your training in and try and strive for these other things. When you might come home from work, you're oh damn, I'm just exhausted today. But no, I know it makes a big difference for sure. But
right, that's where I'm always so impressed. I think people always are oh, your recoveries are super motivating, but for me, I'm that's my job, and I have all the time in the world to dedicate to it. And I'm so impressed with people that have a normal job, a family, etc., and it's they get hurt or something, and it's they got to do that PT on top of all their entire life. So, or even just you're saying, just normal without an injury, training, doing the sport you love, working full time, figuring out life stuff. It's there's a lot to juggle for most people.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I do think that if you do make it through that, it can build like a crazy work capacity. Kind of like the more you do, the more you're able to do, type of thing.
Right.
But yeah, it's if you're yeah, if some people's situations definitely you'd have to be like super dialed in with your goals and everything to make it work if you're in situation, especially if you have to provide for people and stuff. But
Yeah.
no, that's cool, man. You've had a pretty sick story. I'm excited to see how it goes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, did you want to give people like your social media and stuff, or?
Yeah. So social media is just Instagram is at John Collinson, John, and the YouTube channel we're starting. It's called Between the Lines. So supposed to be kind of a like behind the scenes look of the stuff, the cool things I get to do as an athlete, and then hopefully a bunch of lines will get shredded this winter too. That'll be in there.
Hell yeah. I'm excited to watch.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for joining me today, man. I really appreciate you taking the time, and you've always been a huge inspiration of mine, like I said. So super cool sitting down with you and hearing the mindset and all that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. It was nice chatting.
Hell yeah, man. Well, that is episode 5, Comfort Beats Complacency, Johnny Collinson. Thank you, man.
Nice. Episode 5.
Keep her not bad.